Hello. How are we doing, gang? I'm checking audio here. Can anybody confirm that my mic is working? It has been a while. I think it's working. Should be okay. Yeah, we're good. So I'm just gonna get kicking into a painting today. We're doing some sketching. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time. I have no idea what we're starting with. That's the best way to start. If you're new, it's open forum. Feel free to just lean in, ask questions, chat, whatever. I'm just gonna be painting otherwise. Hey, how's it going, Cray? I knew I could count on you being here, man. Appreciate it. I really did not have a start. I made the terrible error of downloading Modern Warfare 2 last night, so I was up pretty late. I'm a little fuzzy. I've been good. I have stories, man. It's been, I think my last stream was 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. And not for lack of wanting to, I've really, really missed you guys. But I was doing art direction on that Magic the Gathering animated TV series, and that has very much kept me busy. Turn down my music a little here. I mean, you expect to be doing loads of work as an art director, so it's nothing new, but it was all time consuming. Very fun though, awesome experience, and I met the coolest people. It was really, really great. I have zero regrets. That wrapped up in July for me. So I was art directing on and doing contract work. So I had originally contracted for a year with the Netflix show, and they kept me on for several more months. So it actually lasted longer than it was supposed to, which is fine with me. Happy to do that. Let's see, am I going to do one of my pale boys? Do some pale action here. Let's see, what else? Well, I'm living back in Oregon. No, I was in Oregon when I started twitching, so Twitch streaming. So you already know that. I sold the boat. Boat is now gone. I sold it actually just a few weeks ago, finally. So Mexico boat adventure is complete, truly complete. I might get another boat again someday. I don't know. It was really fun, but it is another time sink for sure. I don't know. Let's not do standard face stuff. Let's try and get something squirrely in here. Oh, there we go. Already getting some fun. I don't know what's gonna happen with the show. When I left, things were up in the air, so we'll see. Hopefully, you'll get a chance to see it or something like it. I'm sure. I mean, it's too big of a property to let go completely. Shark Pig's doing good. She's a very happy little dog. For those of you that don't know, Shark Pig is Kova. She's a English Bull Terrier and a very sweet yet dumb little hound. Lots of people talk about how they have the dumbest dog. They don't have the dumbest dog. Let's see here. We'll probably do some rough sketches, unless you have any specific questions or anything you guys want to cover. I'm just gonna keep it loose to start and kind of ease back into things before we get too serious and heavy again. Start talking the deep thoughts, but oh yeah, as an art director, I did little painting at all. It was a lot of painting over other people's paintings. It was really like teaching, which was fine. I mean, I enjoyed it. I did like it. But when it comes down to it, when you have a big show like that, and you're not actually doing art on it, you have nothing to show except for the show. So it's a very different kind of approach. Like your aesthetic can be all over a thing, but then at the same time, you don't really have anything at all art-wise. It's more management for sure. A lot of hiring, some firing. Just trying to wheedle out and get and help grow the skill of everybody involved and make sure that you're hitting those aesthetic marks. I mean, it is a challenge, and you do get to do a little bit of art, but it's almost always like clean up when you had an artist that wasn't quite hitting the mark. So you may have to do a redo or something like that. Lots of other artists posting their work on ArtStation 3 years down the line when the end. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. That would be cool. I don't expect that though. The art director attribution. I guess maybe with the show it makes a little bit more sense, because it's a lot more involved, when the art director is there guiding your hand with a big show like that. But with illustration, not so much. It's more like a couple of emails. Always be flipping. We remember our stuff. How do you like the new layout? Like we were talking about in the Discord, just simplifying like crazy. I also changed out the intro, so that's actually something that was taking a great deal of time, because I realized I never really watched the intro to be fair on the previous one and the previous version, and I started seeing it when I was posting the videos to YouTube, and it's like 9 minutes of the same animation each time. So I really didn't like that, and what I wanted to do was a slideshow, but it turns out that what am I on? OBS is really sensitive with its VRAM usage, so I could do a slideshow through their system, but it would only do like 15 images. So to get something that would show, I went through and parsed hundreds of paintings and sketches over the last like 2 or 3 days. Hundreds, and it's weird when you're in the weeds and you're working, you kind of forget how much stuff you're making, and it was shocking. That folder is massive for the slideshow. Anyway, I had to find some JavaScript action just to make it work as a browser source in the OBS. It worked in the end, so it's great. Hopefully you guys dig it. Want to introduce a different color. I like kind of monotone paintings sometimes, but usually, if I can get away with it, at least two vibrant colors to lean on. Get us somewhere fun. Oops. You guys watched anything awesome lately? I just saw Barbarian. I thought it was pretty good. It reminded me a lot of a lot of those other sort of weird horror movies, like Tusk. It definitely had Tusk vibes for me. My girlfriend's on a big horror kick lately, so I'm catching her up. She doesn't watch a whole lot of movies, so it's kind of fun introducing her to all sorts of new stuff. So I get to rewatch things I haven't seen in a long time, and we get to kind of check out new stuff. I'm not a huge horror fan in general, like a traditional horror fan. I gotta, I watch the horror for the stories. I like thrillers. I like all sorts of stuff, fantasy, sci-fi. But horror's never really been a huge one for me unless it had a really clever concept. And sometimes, I feel like they're getting a lot better at that. Like, just a standard slasher isn't really that interesting to me. Next on the queue for me is I want to watch the new Hellraiser on Hulu. Horror scares you? Oh no. Oh wow. The auto mod is very sensitive. Sorry about that, Gray. This is definitely going to be a more adulty show. We use the curse words in here. I don't like, I don't like these shapes just yet. It's one of those things when you have like limbs or something like that that's coming out and it kind of crosses over the main body of your creature or character, you lose something. So you got to find ways to kind of creatively introduce the element without losing anything, without breaking the forms. So when in doubt, go bigger. Let's make this a new layer so I can just kind of transform, see what's up. What's next? More art directing gigs. I am looking for more art directing gigs, but the market's been really janky with so many shows getting canceled and all sorts of things happening. It's been really tough. I've done some interviewing. It's a mix of things, really, because so I'm kind of at that point in my career where there's specific things that I want out of the trajectory of the career. So I'd like to find something that's kind of on par with what I just done. That's creatively challenging, is in a genre that I'm interested in. I've done enough now of just kind of like painting for other people's ideas I'm not super passionate about. So now it's Izzy time. But that means that I have to be patient. I have to consider all of those different options. So I've been interviewing a bit, but I've mostly been turning stuff down if it just isn't fitting what I'm after. I'm really looking for the right thing. But also that means that I've been focusing also on my own personal IPs. So I've gone back and started a new draft on Collar. I'm hoping to get something done before Christmas with that. I think it's much better. I have a better focus this time around with the core of the story. And it's fun. I really love writing. I think I've mentioned it definitely before in our streams that when it comes down to it, writing versus painting, I actually prefer writing. I love painting, but man, writing is just my jam. Collar was originally going to be pitched as a comic, and then a writing buddy convinced me to fix it into a pilot. And so I wrote a pilot for a TV series, like a kind of a sci-fi drama. If the way I've sold it as a genre is kind of like in the realm of a dystopian movie, like what is it? City of Men. I think that's the one. So it's kind of like a sci-fi Walking Dead, in that there's there's this whole subspecies, if you will, of people that are walking bombs, and in that same vein as The Walking Dead, it means that it can be anything. Like you can tell any story within the realm of the IP. So that's been my big selling point for it. But I just need to get like that core story going. But yeah, to answer the question, TV is probably the likely start. But it's gonna the way I think about things always is transmedia. So it could be anything, right? Let's see what we got in here. Picking out a focal point already. Again, we're just playing. We're just gonna make some fun stuff, like low investment sketches to start before we get back into doing full-blown illustrations. And part of that is I'm out of practice, man. It's been a long time since I've done full-blown illustrations like this. I'm still doing like magic cards and things like that. And that's where the income's coming from. But it's been a while since I've done a Twitch style paint up where we're just going crazy. Is this too dark for y'all? I can't tell. I have my contrast set to like really sensitive value control for my painting purposes, and I'm not sure how it looks on everybody else's monitor. This could be too dark, I think. It's Taiki. Yeah, we're gonna pop it. We're gonna pop it out of here. We're just starting there. But if you can read it, that's all that matters. I do not want these to read as arms. I want them to be teefies, or like a mandible of some kind. Might be that we need to do a color change. Yeah, I missed doing these paintings of like speed critters and weird monsters. I'm chatting with y'all. Hopefully we can build back up the audience and get some really good conversations going, like the old days. You've probably noticed that everything's different in the background now if you're a watcher from back in the day. And one of the things that this involves, I got a new desk so that I could get all my monitors and everything on here, and the color lights that I was using before are now up here, and so they kind of cast into my face a little bit. So it's affecting my color sense here. Some shit has definitely gone down in 2 years. No doubt. Alright, so let's do something drastic. Introduce a new layer. Let's play with screen. Let's get some lights in here and see if we can see this a little better. Cool thing about starting out a painting and keeping it in a very specific tight key is that you can go in later if you have your color information all sussed out, you can go in later with either a screen if it's a dark key, or a multiply layer if it is a light key, and all of the color information will remain. So it's almost like you're introducing a light or a shadow. It's awesome. Digital painting. Doing anything fun this summer? Adventures, travel? Let's not do that one. I want the opposite side to catch the light. Yeah. Being in Oregon now, one of my favorite things about Oregon, this is one of the places I grew up when I was a kid, is access to the rivers and lakes and stuff. So this summer I've just been going ham. We did a bunch of floats down the river. I'm getting used to my camera over here now. It's been over there for so long. My head just automatically goes that way. Yeah, there's nothing quite like lazy floating down a river with a cooler of beers and some friends. Man, that was great. You're learning to drive. That's awesome. It's a challenge. I think people kind of forget how much of a challenge it is to learn something new like that. When it's an alien thing, it is weird. For me, it was getting the sensitivity on the pedals. Oops. Can't do that. Almost 30, so it's been an experience. Don't feel bad, man. I got my license really late. I got my license around the same age. I was in my mid-20s, and my first car was an automatic. I bought it with school loan money, and it was stolen 2 weeks after I bought it. I had no money, but I really needed a car because I was going to school in LA. And miserable shit. But several weeks later, I ended up throwing my loan at another one, and it was a stick shift. So I had to learn how to drive a stick shift on the freeway in LA on the drive home. It was good times. Sorry about that. I have plans for a meeting today with a friend from my Sony days. Talk some shop, but we didn't really lock down a time, so just double checking. You know, do automatics in Europe? Seriously? That's amazing. I didn't know that. Well, if it's the only thing to learn on, then that's perfect. You know what? I don't like this color. I want something a little bit more punchy. Stick is the norm. It's perfect. It's better, honestly. I find driving automatic is boring and sleepy for me now. Even though everything I'm doing on a stick is just subconscious at this point, I don't even think about it. When I go back to an automatic, it's just such a sleepy, non-interactive experience. Yeah, not a fan. This is the other cool thing that I was talking about earlier with the screen system. Once you lay down your darks, keep it a dark key, and you've already included color information. Is that the color? If you pick a more saturated version of a color for your screen, is it's going to interact between the colors more. It'll give you some surprises. Okay, that's enough of that for now. Let's move on to the next thing. Let's get some detailing in. So you probably noticed I started with the big shapes and everything. I do this a lot. I'll start a painting with shapes first, and then I will figure out line work after, and then I'll go back into shapes again. It's not that I don't like drawing. I love to draw. It's just I find this faster somehow and less noodly. This is a problem. My spine back here is garbage. We're gonna fix that. I like to go big and bold and make all my mistakes as fast as possible with the concept. And the cool thing is when you get to this stage, the line work, it's defining things, but it's also kind of giving you texture. You hit a lot of birds with a single stone when you go this route. Let's kind of give this thing a little hood there, and it's like a carve out. It's great. I really like this method. And you can go either way. Let me show you. Spine is garbage. Mine is too. Man, I am starting to feel all of those age complaint things. So here we go with a lighter line. We can do exactly the same thing. You can just kind of carve out shapes. Make little statements. See what I'm saying? It's crazy. And it just gives you so much detail really quickly. This is one of my favorite speed painting methods. Do the opposite. Go dark on light. So it's not even a dark or light thing. It is just contrasting. I'm gonna change my mind about stuff. Detail back here. I love drawing segmented stuff. I don't know why. Segmented stuff and shiny stuff. Creepy candy. Let's do some silliness here. This is clearly turning into some kind of saber-toothed tapeworm. Yes. Yeah, why not? Get some dramas. Oh yeah. Well, the stream is just a mirror of the streamer, right? Hopefully we'll find more weirdos that get this. awfulness that I bring into the world. Let's do. I need to do something to get this to feel more connected, because right now it feels like a head with arms, and I really don't want that. Let's get some other brushes in here. Let's try this guy, get some texture. You know, you might be right. Something cute. This can be added to my creepy cute collection. Let's see, what can we pull up with this? Painted myself in a corner with that, with those tusks. I love pulling out this brush because it gives us those textures. Get that hatching effect with just minimal effort. It's so great. Yeah, the bonsai study is very fun. Did you get your hands on the Stollenhog brushes I made? I think you mentioned that. Somebody mentioned it. My memory's going in my old age. Nice. Hopefully those are working out. I still have them in this set. I don't use them as much because of the chunk of that canvas texture. It's great. I love having that canvas under texture, but you can't paint anything else with it. Like, all of the brushes have to have that texture, or it doesn't. The illusion doesn't hold up. And you'll find that's true when you look at Stollenhog's brushes in his paintings. God, I hope I'm saying his name right. I feel bad. He's living the dream right there. That's what I'm after. Make some cool book, get a TV show, do the thing. Yeah, you are committing to the texture and that brushwork. And I think that kind of adds to that exercise in a way. Stolen hog? Yeah, that makes sense. Of course I would butcher it. That's how I do. This room is tough. We have skylights, and it just creates a pretty strong glare. Not helping at all. Kinda is. Damn it. I hate that. Such an itchy skin. Coffee. Thinking of repainting one of your earliest digital paintings. I'm back to the idea with new skills. Oh yeah, that's great fun. I definitely recommend doing that. Or if you have an old sketchbook with old sketches, dig those out and see what you could do now. Compare and contrast. Is this adding anything? I don't think it did. So I'm gonna just delete it. I do like the iridescent kind of color space I'm getting into with this though. I love lab colors. I will never ever get tired of playing with the lab color box. I see what we can do here. I just need to extend this particular segment. Hello, A2C. Welcome. Thank you so much for leaning in. What makes what special or different? Gray voice, sorry. Are you speaking of the lab tool? Ah, yeah. Okay, so this is the lab color. Whoops. Come on now. This is the lab color palette. And it is, if you look at in your windows, if you pop out color, you'll see what you normally get when you're looking at this is like RGB sliders or HSB. And these are different ways to control your colors, right? So, of course, hue, saturation, value, right? One that's never really used is lab. Lab down here is great because lab separates value from color. And when I say color, I mean the actual hue that you're working within. So you'll see here, and I cannot remember the exact names of what each of these letters mean. I think this is lightness and then A and B. I can't remember, but it has to do with color, a color spectrum. So these are complementary color spectrums, and you can get all the same colors that you could get up here out of this, but the level of control is different. So you can keep the same value here. make a new layer real quick. Let's see, keep that value and then alter the hue. And you can get a variety of colors that live within the same value key just by subtly messing around with these. When you get further out there, it's still technically in the same value, I believe. Yeah, it's close. It's close enough that, you know, you can get away with it without too much break apart. Actually, that could just be a opacity thing there, but you get the idea. It's pretty great, and it's like painting, traditional painting. When you're mixing your painting and you want to get some color variation, you know, you're painting a big wall or something like that, you know, one of these walls back here. You see how this color of wall right here, if you were to take a screenshot of me right now, this color of wall, if you color pick that and then paint it against this one here, you're going to get two totally different colors. And that's kind of a way that you can play within those two, that gradient, to get different vibration in the color. Simultaneous contrast. You're forcing the viewer's eye to see a different color than what's actually there, or it'll create a kind of movement, an illusory movement. There we go. That's the word. I do words. I'm good. So we're gonna pop our color guy back in there because I totally lost track. A2C, you were about to begin about to get the Patreon a few months ago, but I was busy with Netflix, so I run my Patreon again. Basically, the Patreon, the way it was before, was it has been a tip jar for this, the Twitch, and I think I had at a certain level you could get a critique each month. And the other part of it was getting the discount for the lessons on Gumroad. So that's the core. I mean, really, Patreon is just kind of a cursory thing. This whole Twitch thing is free. So you come hang out, and we can just talk, and no biggie. We're basically doing classes here. It's the best price. Get that art center education for nothing. Dim this down just a touch. A dicky do. So, with something like this, we could stop noodling at this point and throw in highlights, you know, some speculars and things like that, and it would look veritably done. And that does work, and I never do it. So I think I'm going to try and force myself to do it now and see if I can get away with more indicative painting this round. I, like many of you, have the overpainting issue. I definitely will worry something to death and just overwork it. I mean, it's common. These things never really go away. It's a constant battle. This is a personal piece I'm working on right now. This is just a random sketch. We're just warming up. I mean, I haven't been on Twitch for, I want to say 2 years or almost 2 years. So I am just kind of trying to get back into the swing of things, get used to talking and painting. Well, actually, I was always doing that with the art direction, but like, you know, having no interaction, you know, it's kind of, it's more one-sided. Just there's a particular set of skills that need to be applied when we're talking about teaching or, you know, covering painting concepts and things like that to a quiet audience. I've spent many years teaching in college classrooms and stuff, and I always thrived off of the interaction with the students. So without that, it's kind of a whole new bag for me. So I'm just getting back into the swing of things, and I'm doing so with just a puff piece. There's no real effort here. This is just kind of goofing around. Just making some fun, goofy. Alright. I think if I dig out some darks and kind of define some edges a little bit. Kind of just showing you a quick speed painting technique. Effectively, that's what's going on here. I don't know if this will end up on my Instagram or not. You know what I mean? Still rocking the intros? Oh yes. Look at this. Oh god, it's like so old. It's sticking to shit. I mean, yeah, it works. I'm old, man. I can't. I really don't have an excuse for it anymore. I'm just old. So like, I use the same old Intuos. I use the same old software. I was talking with a buddy of mine about the Photoshop and our history of Photoshop. He used to come on here pretty regular, ADSR thug, and we were both groaning about how long we'd been with the program, and we discerned that we've been using Photoshop since Photoshop 2. And you know, I'm so used to the old Photoshop. I grew up using Photoshop, and you know, kind of being introduced to each new gimmick that it wants to throw at us, and I just gave up trying to learn the new gimmicks with Photoshop CS6, which is now like 8-10 years old. I don't even know anymore. So this is still Photoshop 6 I'm painting on. That's why the interface looks different than yours, most likely. So my old Intuos, which I had on the boat, I've had this thing since, I want to say 2015, 2016. Works fine. No complaints. No regrets. I don't know that we'll be able to see this other side. We might not be able to go for a symmetrical cuteness here. I think a lot of stuff has happened since CS6, particularly in dealing with 3D. Brush controls have changed. I know that. So what was being implemented with the beginning of CS6 was the content-aware stuff. So content-aware patch tool, the content-aware transformations, things like that were just kind of being tested with this one. And I know there's a lot more since then, a lot more options. Let's grab some texture. We're gonna do maybe a darken. Oops, no, I need a new layer for that. Don't worry, I'm not going to get rid of everything here. I just wanted to kind of like get some noise. I just needed visual noise, really. Nothing's really lost. This is one of my favorite kind of canvas, you know, brush surface brushes. It almost looks like when I would paint with acrylics, or yeah, with acrylics in particular, and then I would do oils on top. And I would get this glaze that would catch in the ridges of the brushes. It looked a lot like this, and you wipe it off, and you get these cool textures. It's funny that all of the digital stuff I do now is kind of partially intended to give me the feel that I used to have just painting with acrylics and oils. The content-aware thing, yeah, content-aware transformation is fantastic. I mean, the things that they're doing with it are quite good. 3D's being phased out in the newer Photoshop. Seriously? I didn't know. See, this is how out of touch I am with it. I just gave up. I want to use the other standalone 3D programs. I mean, that makes sense. really Photoshop has part of the reason, a big part of the reason I stopped at CS6 is Photoshop started to feel like bloatware. Like it just had too much. You know, it would take forever to load on a laptop. It was nuts. Let's do also a lighten. I'm gonna kind of do the same thing. Oops. All I'm trying to do is introduce a little bit of color variation into shadow areas. Anytime you're using lighten or darken, you're just introducing color and value shifts in the opposite side. And again, all of this is just to achieve a traditional painting look. All right, now we're gonna go back to just painting. Let's grab a. Let's see what this guy does for us. Also a favorite brush. Oops. Demage, welcome back to chat. Glad you can make it. Are you en route right now to your? You said you had travel plans. So here is a perfect example of how I might use lab. Let's say I want to introduce a little bit of green into that. So I can do that, color pick, undo, and now I'm just getting little slight color variations into things. It's great. Oh yeah, I forgot to warn. If you're new, I flip canvas tons, so be prepared for that. I have had people mention that they get like motion sick when I do that too much. So I'm spending more time here now because we've kind of established our focal point's going to be the head. Oh, plans for tomorrow instead? Great, you get to hang out with us. It's great to be streaming again. I have been thinking about it pretty much nonstop since I stopped. It's just been, I've been bogged down with the, well, not bogged down, but I've had other things to focus on with the job and stuff. So I'm glad to be back on and just kind of paint and talk. Really missed hanging out with you guys. So intense you get motion sickness. That's right. This is rock and roll painting. Let's see. How are we on time? I didn't even look. Yeah, I think we're gonna be perfect with this. I could probably finish this in another 20 minutes, and we could start a new one, and hopefully have that done before the end of our session today. Or I could noodle on this one. What would you guys prefer to see? Ah, thanks for the sub, Dimesh. Appreciate it. So speaking of which, I have not yet figured out what the full schedule will be. I'm thinking Saturday is going to be a regular thing for a while until I lock down something for the week. I've been thinking about other kinds of streams, like we could do games or we could do writing, if that's something y'all are interested in. Chunks in there. See what I mean about kind of throwing in some unusual colors and some strokes, how it makes it just gives a vibrancy to surfaces. It's crazy. It's crazy. Hey! What's up, brother? Long time. Yeah, it's been 2 years. We were just doing the math. Yeah, I missed watching myself in a screen, like doing this while I paint. Just slack jaw. I'm sure everybody else missed that too. Good to see you, man. You can't look at it when you're doing it? Yeah. Well, it's funny because I post infrequently. I post the videos to YouTube, and so I get to watch myself as they're rendering. It's funny. Saying of which, yeah, if any of you are interested in old episodes from before, you can watch the different paintings I've made in my first, I want to say, year of streaming. It's probably less than a year, I can't remember. You can find those on my YouTube. It is linked up above, right. You'll see it pop up. Give me that subscribe, follow, notification, all the good stuff. But it's interesting having all of that stuff back up there. It's almost like a video journal. Cool. Remember all the kooky stuff I was going through at the time. My various adventures. Relax, Kova. I could get a bot spamming the Discord link for which? For the YouTubes? Kova, relax. Lay down. Go lay down. I am knocking down the brights that I just introduced there because I want to keep my focal point to the top end of my space tapeworm. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, fair point. The Discord link is in my About section. So that's a good place to get it too. Yeah. But you're right. It's so much easier. I'll have to look up how to do. I'm looking over there. I keep looking towards that side. I'm gonna have to look up how to do bots for OBS or Twitch so that we can get those links popping up in a place where it's easy to access them. Kova's in need of going outside, I think. We may have to put the little test my B ride back scene. Let's knock these back a little bit too. Kova, chill. Dork. Oops. We'll save it later. Only follow my stream and Paul Scott Kenevans uses Nightbot. Ah, okay. Well, I've seen his stream a couple of times. It's very entertaining. He's a great artist, teacher. He's Scottish, right? I can't remember. It's the last time I was on Twitch was when I was actually streaming too. Yeah. Come for the accent, stay for the content. It's good stuff. So, I did not get an answer. What do you guys think? Wrap this one up, put 20 minutes in it, call it done, start a new one, or finish out the rest of our stream of about an hour or so, and start a new one. Thoughts? Throw things at the wall. Alright, then we will do a slow build-up of our speculars. And I'll show you how to cheat some specular texture. Speculars can be so tricky. Flex the story muscles. Yeah. Could try that. You just want to sit with it. I mean, the screen would just be Final Draft Pro. I don't know if it's that interesting, but it would. We'd be talking story. We'd still be talking a lot about the same kind of stuff because I tend to just gab about nonsense while I paint, and then occasionally chat about painting. But we cover story a lot. Either way. Alright, so we've got some texture causing some visual interest in our focal point. Now, what I've done here with these little, with these particular hatches is create a scale that I'm not a fan of. It feels too, it's making the overall object feel too small because these details are too big. So I'm going to knock them down a little bit and use them as kind of a structural thing. It's like with textures, you can think of it kind of like the tree idea, where you see the shape of the tree, you know, the trunk with the branches that goes out, and then in the tree on the branch you see the shape of that's the same, where it's like the trunk and then the branches come out. So you have all of these fractal breakdowns. You can do that with texture too. So you start with texture, and you don't need a texture brush to do this. You can do this with you know, just a simple brush and do the same thing, right? And just dig in little or larger textures, larger hatch marks rather. When I'm on a train of thought, I tend to repeat myself. I apologize. So you can do it with anything. The only thing that a texture brush really gives you is time savings because you're having all of those brush strokes in a single stroke instead. So we're starting big, and then fractally we can get smaller and smaller. And what that does is that's going to give us a cheat for scale. Another thing that I'm doing that's breaking scale is the size of the eyes. It's the whale eye theory that I've talked about before, where if you want to make something look really, really large, you make its eyes smaller and smaller and smaller. You want something to look small, you make its eyes bigger and bigger and bigger. And when I say that, that's relative to the body size. So eye size relative to body size is going to denote a sense of scale. And if you're trying to fight against it, break that rule. You can do it, but if you're trying to break that rule, it requires extra effort and care. And you have to find other ways to hint at scale than the eye theory. Since we're trying to make a cute, giant space tapeworm, I have the best streams. Come on, right? Who else is painting giant space tapeworms? Put these down. And then, so just to continue my point of what I was saying earlier, I make a smaller brush, so these brush strokes will be even tighter, and I can just lay those on top. I'm gonna use them as a... See how it changes the scale? The relative scale gets pretty... It has a pretty significant shift just by doing that. I don't want to use that brush to do that. I just wanted to get those big strokes. Now we're going to switch to something a little chunkier. Maybe this guy. But it's the same idea. If you shrink your brush, if you save your brush size crushing for the last bit to really kind of punch the scale, this is the time to do it. You get really small brushes. The trick with all of this is to know when to jump from one level of detail to the next. It is so easy to, and I am so guilty of it, getting bogged down too early in detail and losing the vibrancy of the big strokes. I think that's why I love doing this kind of sketch still, is it reminds me to go back to that kind of thinking, to slow it down, to speed it up, keep the visual interest and vibrancy of rough brush strokes, and then throw in your detail on top and just let it be. Man, that is such a tough lesson to follow. Does the giant space tapeworm infect planets and fuck the planet's ability to maintain its internal ecosystems, causing it to become malnourished and die? I think you just described humans. Dark. We just got dark. Sorry, gang. Yeah, I like that story. It's like a mix of a tapeworm and a bobbit worm. And it just kind of floats around in space, gobbling stuff up that floats by. And those of you that have been painting with me for a long time, you know how much I love this part of the painting. I love doing the speculars. But I really want to focus on the idea of knowing when to jump to that final phase. If we spend more time in this, we're still going to end up with a very detailed painting. And we spent very little time doing the setup and creating all of that texture and variety back there. And if we just do this part, it's still gonna read as a finished like whole painting. And I'm fixating on this because I am trying to hammer this into my brain, because this is a problem I always have, especially with my magic cards. I get so bogged down and start painting really, really tight so early, and I lose the vibrancy. I lose the appearance of a lack of effort. And I can definitely say I'll blame that a little bit on some of the influences I've had over the years. When it comes to painting, where there's been such a push for photorealism, and it's interesting that now that I'm much later in my career, all I want to do is get back to how I painted when I first started, and I just didn't care or didn't know. It's fascinating. Yes, I do save it till the end as a treat, but it's the question is always, how soon can I get to that treat for this part of the rendering, and how much middle ground work can I avoid by just making something, getting down some big shapes, getting the bigger colors, getting kind of a rough understanding of how everything's going, and then making it feel finished with that detail pass. That's the trick. That's what I'm after, is just to go back to that. You should definitely see some of my older paintings, even my like really early Magic the Gathering work. It's even rougher than this, believe it or not. The shapes and everything, I mean, you can see just bad digital brushstrokes everywhere, but it's that roughness is finished out with that last 10% of visual noise that comes from this detail pass, and that stuff for me just vibrates more. It just has more life to it, and a lot of the stuff I do now feels so dead to me after I've overworked it. Rendering is one hell of a drug. It is. Yeah, it is a discipline in and of itself when we're talking about doing your paintings, to know when to stop each phase and move on to the next one. It requires practice and vigilance. You've made a career out of photorealism. Yeah, I can see that. But that's the trick. Like, maybe you can take the Drew Struzan approach, pull back from the photorealism in terms of actual texture and rendering, and then get the photoreal color, lighting, shapes, and then render how he did with hatching and stuff like that. Oh no! ADSR Thug returns and has named a layer. Let's do it. I was just telling the gang when I first started that I picked up Modern Warfare 2 yesterday and was up crazy late. Come on now. So then I couldn't I couldn't even think straight when I started. I went to bed at like 3. Well, after 3, let's be honest. I was playing with the ADSR Thug, but he was smart. He quit it at I think 1. Yeah, I even outlasted Reg. I think it's good. It has a lot of potential. I have a bad habit of getting addicted to FPSs anyway, but I think it's probably one of the better Modern Warfares in a while. It feels... it has a feeling of realism in the gunplay that is, I think, more satisfying than the more arcadey version. But I say that also having just played a shit ton of Destiny 2 in the last couple of months. Also with ADSR Thug. We squad up. Yes, it is next gen only, I believe. It looks amazing, but yeah, ADSR is right. It is buggy as hell. But you know, it's early still in the release. I mean, I get the price tag. We've talked about this before on the stream. I get the price tag issues with games, but honestly, with the amount of content that you get and the quality of content, I feel like they're actually really underpriced. I mean, I am saying that as a former regular developer, but I mean, even $100 when you count out the hours of time spent playing a game versus a movie, and you do the math on that comparatively, I mean, it's no contest. You're getting way more value out of a game. And I mean, considering the amount of work that goes into games, yeah, I'm gonna definitely side on the game should probably cost more. I know that they probably never will, but you know, that's a discussion for another day. Can't stop picturing Bobby Connor going, "Thank you for the money." Yes. Okay. Absolutely fair when it comes to like millionaires and billionaires just raking it in. I mean, yeah, this thing sells that many copies and it costs that much. Yeah, fair point. Yeah, I feel like that should go to the developers themselves. Like, you know, and some companies do that. They have really nice bonus packages or, you know, percentages on the back end depending on profit. Like that's a thing, and that's a goal. You want to work for a company that thinks like that. I believe my mating call on Call of Duty is that's bullshit. It's bullshit. You've been playing and streaming Doom Eternal. Nice. How is it streaming games? Since I've never done it, I kind of want to. I mean, it seems like it would be fun to just, but I don't know. I don't think I could concentrate. I would just play the game, and I wouldn't be talking at all. It makes sense if other games were priced lower. I mean, I guess it depends on the game, but really, it's amount of hours versus payout. Think about how much it costs to go to the movies, and how many hours. I mean, let's just take an example. So I got Destiny 2 in midsummer somewhere, and it cost me $60-$70 for the game, and maybe another 30 for the extra downloads I needed to get. And I easily put in, you know, 200 hours more, probably a lot more. I can't remember, but you do the math on that. It subdivides very fast. Where, you know, you're only paying for a few cents an hour of entertainment. Yeah, I try to support the developers the same way. Ender. Star Wars on this thing has cost $69. Yeah, in 1992. That's crazy. That's a crazy thought that the prices have not gone up with everything else. I mean, even the systems have been kind of in the same vein too. When we're talking about machines that should be thousands, they're like, hey, we'll still sell it just for $500 or whatever. Video games haven't increased in price for 15 years. Yeah, and that's the thing I think a lot of players forget is, so development prices development costs go up, yes, but then you also have to remember that anytime you're making a game, the the same budget that you have for the game itself, you have to have that same budget for just advertising, because the advertising is such an expensive aspect of things. I mean, it's really expensive to make games. And the fact that they've been able to, it's not that they've been able to, it's this whole cake and eating it too issue. Like, I know developers don't like having to monetize in other ways. Well, we'll not talk about, you know, the higher ups, but, you know, those of us that are the grunts, you know, we prefer, we're almost always gamers too, so we don't like any abusive practices when it comes to pricing and monetization. But if we're talking about this kind of market where nothing's changed for the income side of things, they have to find other ways to do it. So we're going to be seeing all sorts of, I mean, as we've seen, all sorts of monetization tactics that will piss people off. It is what it is. The client base has increased more than 10 times. Sure, it has. I don't know that should necessarily affect the price of an object. I mean, I'm saying that as not necessarily pro-capitalist in the slightest, but based on the system as it is, I'm trying to think of how to do things ethically, and just dividing the cost so that you're making the same. You're selling more units, but you're making the same. Like, it doesn't make sense. Revenue's gone up radically. It has, and there's definitely benefit to it, but you have to remember that a big part of that radical growth has been because of how monetization has changed. If they were still using the old model of just, you know, $70 a game, $500 a system, I don't know that it would have continued to go up that radically. It's going up radically because they're finding other ways to make money, and they have to, because it's not, the old way doesn't work in terms of income, because the cost is just so great. Let's get some planar textures going in here. Just want to break it up a little bit so these don't just feel like simple segments. I want them to feel more organic. PS2 still holds records. Yeah. I was just watching something on the most sold system, and I don't think it was PlayStation. I think it was, what was it? Not Neo Geo. I can't remember. Super expensive to advertise games. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Use the advertising budget for the game too. That's not how it works, unfortunately. Again, developers would agree with you. They would love to dump that into, you know, getting the engines to work better, focusing on the systems, and it's just, things don't get sold that way. Keep the price the same, cut higher up salaries. Also, not a bad idea. I don't disagree with that. Getting some very strong Wrath of Khan worm. Oh yeah, I remember those things. Yeah, I can see it. Those were great. I'm hoping that I can get it to feel bigger. Oh, we didn't even talk about the other way that you can really easily make scale work when you're painting something like this and you really want to like hint at scale. The easiest thing you can do is to introduce something that's man-sized in relation. So if you throw in like a spaceship and the spaceship's this big, then yeah, we have suddenly scale. So we might end up doing that at the end. It's It's funny. I was talking about the whale eye theory and didn't even talk about the most basic, obvious stuff. My favorite is just the ever-present skull, human skull, or a guy standing with a stick to give you scale. Concept art laziness. It's beautiful, and it works. I think I like this kind of dented, almost hammered texture I'm doing. Yeah, famous concept, Stickman. At a platform with tiny silhouetted people in it in the foreground. Oh yeah, just like watching the action. You're right. That totally works. Gang, I gotta pause for 1 second, let out the dog. I will be right back. Probably 20 seconds at most. Something like that. We'll see. I will be right back. One moment. We're back. Apologies. Could be fun to dump it on Mid-Journey after finishing. I mean, yes, but then it would just make my painting look bad. Because I don't have time to render it like Mid-Journey does. You know, what I really don't think you could do in 2 hours something that is as detailed and over the top as Mid-Journey is. Because you have to remember, Mid-Journey is effectively doing something that is, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years in the making. It's not very fair. Sense. All right. Let's get back to our noodling. Yes, there is a part of me that's just like aching to get on the eye, but I always save the most fun, the cherry on the sundae for the last. I know some of you are screaming inside right now. I get it. I am too. I love this brush for hatching. EA is going to stop selling some of their physical games. Yeah, of course, to stop secondhand. I mean, it's easier. It has its upsides, but really, it's going to be the end result, guaranteed. Of course it was EA. What I'm doing now down here is I'm trying to soften my really sharp edges because I want this to almost fall out of focus. And we can do this by just doing the computational blur with the filter, but what it's doing is basically what we're doing here with the paint. It's just softening the value difference, the contrast drop off of those two surfaces. And this is how you would do it traditionally with a traditional painting with oils, acrylics, gouache. I'm just trying to do the same thing. Again, prime example of seeing really excellent edge control in order to create realistic effects would be Stolen Hog. Electronic farts. We are children. Little shrimpy feets. I love shrimpy feets. Those are fun to paint. A little bit more brightness in here. Let's cool it off just a touch. So I'm introducing these here to give us a little bit of contrast in edge, and what it should do is make our soft edge that much more soft feeling. It's always about contrast. Contrast of detail, contrast of color, contrast of value, vibrancy, or saturation, depending on how you use the term. You should just go watch Stalin. Yeah, feel free. I would be. I think it would be fun to watch. I've seen, like, I've managed to get my hands on a few of his, like, GIFs. Yes, I say GIFs. And, videos and things like that on how he paints. They are very rare, pretty hard to dig up. It's a very distinct way of doing things. It's a very layered, traditional approach, but it's so chonky and like alla prima. That's good. All right, it is time. How are we doing on time? Oh, perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Anthony? That's a pretty good name. Well, I'm happy I was still able to suss out a painting in a couple of hours. Still have it. That's good news for the stream. Because if I botched this, that was going to be the end of it. Did I start with a complimentary underpainting? We can actually go back and see everything. I started with I just scribbled the purple first and black on top because I knew I wanted to do a light out of dark hole. I started with rudimentary shapes, just kind of exploring, transformed, started finding textures, detail. This is just carving out forms with the with like a pen tool, effectively, or a pen style brush, acrylic fine point. More textures. This was screen layers and things like that. So I grabbed this, transformed it to get our current shape, and then started carving it up and adding textures. See, I mean, it's a very simple painting. There's not like a whole lot going on. I did use airbrush here with some texture to knock back, round out surfaces, and then knock some of the elements back, like this back tusk. Then I started my rough lighting texture, tighter texture, and now we are in speculars. And so, I mean, again, like I was saying, the goal here was to just do kind of a quick and dirty thing that feels like it's kind of a finished painting, which is, you know, used to be my bread and butter, and now I don't do nearly enough of anymore. So I don't want to overdo it. I don't want this to look just straight up wet. I just want it to feel like carapace. So I'm gonna hit the speculars where they should be, and knock them back pretty significantly. So that really what we're doing is maintaining our focal point. See if this is actually something I see with students a lot. Is they'll specular, they'll follow my directions on where to place speculars, how to place speculars, but then forget focal point because it's so fun to paint speculars. So I just hint it at them and I'm knocking them way back so that our focal point remains the highest contrast area. Looks great. Thank you. Colors are juicy. That's the goal. It is the Izzy special. That is true. We call it the corrupted candy, the creepy cute. Oh, this timing's perfect. I'm just now starting to get a little bit hungry. All these little strokes are also there for giving us scale. And what I'm doing by erasing out is I'm giving directionality to where the specular is brightest, where it is hitting. It's just a cheap, easy way to do it. Love me some shortcuts, man. Am I planning on offering critiques through Patreon like I used to? Yes, I am considering getting back into that. I wanted to kind of tiptoe first, or rather dip my toe into the streaming again, see how I'm feeling. The big concern that I have is I don't want to leave anybody hanging if I end up with another heavy gig. So we will do this less kind of dependent basis right now of just like a loose class format. See how things are going, see how my personal projects are moving forward, and if I can lock into a rhythm with that, then we will start pulling in some of the older interactions that we had, like critiques. For those of you that don't know, what we would do is painting critique and paint overs, things like that, here on the Twitch for the patrons that paid at that level. I mean, at a distance, I think it's reading pretty well, even though it's very loose. That's pretty fun. You're looking at mentorships and stuff to get centered and well aimed. I mean, we can always chat about that in here, no worries. But if you're looking for hard out mentorships, I know there are some art teachers that are offering actual full class equivalents for that, like Peter Hahn. I know he does that, but I think they tend to be focused on their particular disciplines. Do not really have mentorships beyond what we're doing in here. Let's just punch it. Grab a real sharp sharp little brush. Even more directionality to where our specular is hitting from. Let's give him a little bit of cova eye. These are, I mean, I'm literally pixel painting at this point, so these are not going to be super visible in the final, but again, it's kind of like a scale thing. I'm trying to find any way I can to implement scale without just introducing a ship. Feeling like cover art will work well with how you do things. You'd even do the whole thing since you're a graphic designer. Oh, like doing the full cover layout. Yeah, that's a great way to go. And it's fun. Let's do one more thing. Let's do our... magenta cyan. Chromatic aberration. Oh yeah. That's the way, baby. So what I'm doing here, hopefully you're seeing kind of the rhythm I'm getting at, is I'm following a line through. And that, making sure that my speculars kind of all map on that line of anatomy that I'm implying will help it feel more grounded and real. Let's see if we can do any last minute surface changes to kind of fix up the design a touch. So I'm going back to painting loose with a bigger brush, but I'm not trying to do it over my my detailed areas that much if I can help it. You can always draw in details with lines if you do. Don't like the lack of roundness here. If I make it a circle, it will be cuter. I don't know why, it just is. I'm sure there's actual science to it. Right? Like, isn't that just automatically cuter? Subtle Carcharodon Carcarius vibes? Yes. Well, as a big fan. Giant underwater critters. Right? He's hella cute. I like that. With this kind of approach, it's just as much about the kind of scraggly random shit you leave in as it is about the things you paint purposefully. I don't know why that is. It works so well to let stuff lay. It gives it such an unburdened appearance where it doesn't look as overworked. And I just got to get back into that full time. I love how it looks and feels. It's got kind of a magic to it, I think, when it's uncompromisingly lazy. They have round eyes too. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Doll's eyes. I'm trying to fill in those mid-tones, not go over my details that I've already established. I'm trying to mimic basically what I had done with the rough in. The Sargent effect, which is that, oh yes, to have it feel, yeah, the alla prima approach. Absolutely. I mean, that's the dream right there. It's to hit anywhere close to that guy. I do feel like we are missing a little bit. Don't want it to be sharp edged. It might need to be a soft hatch. Yeah, lighting and trying to do a specular in a part where you've established that it's meant to be a soft edge thing. Man, it is tough. Let's get our magenta again. I remember I used to do productions. Back in college, we would do walls, throw up productions, spray paint, um, graffiti art, stuff like that. And one of the things that made it interesting was the challenge of trying to get colors that just did not necessarily go together in terms of saturation or hue work. And one of my favorites was I had found this really kind of dusky, desaturated purple, and started working it together with this just obnoxious magenta. And I think that color combination's just kind of stuck with me ever since. So I love to throw that obnoxious magenta in on top of a dusky purple. I mean, they do go together, those colors, but it's unnatural. You think his name is Graham? All right, so we've got Tony and Graham and Bethany. Oof. Running the gamut here. All right, I think we will call that one done and move on with our lives. I have painted yet another weird parasite worm creature. I don't think I'll be doing any more on this one, but yeah, it was good to get to kick the rust off and come back for a little bit and hang. So thank you all for joining me today. That was great. Yeah, I'll jump on the COD later as well. I'm gonna grab something to eat, a little breakfast. But currently the plan is, just as a heads up, we'll be doing Saturdays around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and we'll probably roll for a couple of hours. I'm going to keep practicing just doing really loose, random things, and this is meant to kind of, for me personally, just kind of shake out and relax from the wrist-destroying, super tight paintings I've been doing lately for Magic the Gathering cards and things like that. So you all are welcome to join. Kick us a follow if you want to get notified about the next show. Turn all that stuff on. If you want to watch old stuff, it's on YouTube. And I always finish out with the Patreon ad, though, because I don't really have the Patreon going right now. I think we're just going to let it go to black. Yeah, thanks so much, gang. It was really fun hanging out and having you on. So you all take it easy. We'll see you next Saturday, should all go well. As always, paint smart, paint sexy.